Okay, so here's the scene that I collect all the geometries and then the hair. So I'm basically ready to start to look that. Okay, the eyeball I already made a shader before, so I just import the eyes and then just placed it. And overall pose, well, I'm not a rigger, so I was just using the rough like auto rig and then pose it first and then fixing the model after. So the pose part is not very like accurate or perfect, but yeah, I mean I just try to hit what I kind of want it to be. Okay, so open up the hyper shade and then start with the face. Okay, so I'll assign right click and then I put my AI sender surface under my favorite material. You can actually do that too. So it's under here, and then the shader itself is here. AI is standard surface. So this is the Uber shader for the Arnold. So basically we can create like most of the material by using this one. So just click it to create new material and select the object and then right click on the shader and assign material to viewport selection. Okay, so I just assigned AI surface and the surface onto this model. So there's a bunch of textures and node here, which comes from the hair inputs. So yeah, it's gonna be there. It's basically attached to geometry, not the shader. And I'm gonna name this shader to the head. Okay. And I need to import the textures as well, right? So I create a subsurface. With this, basically replace the base color input. So I'm gonna put the weight to the 1, and then the rest of the slots will be available. So there's a textures here that I collected into the individual folder for the hand and then head. So I just drag and drop into Hypershade, and then I get all these textures. Okay, so here's something that is quite important and need to keep in mind. It depends on the color workflow. If you don't know the color workflow, then I strongly suggest you to can learn about this color workflow, about linear workflow and some ACES workflow. I mean, basically they are all talking about the more accurate color input. So it's one of the crucial thing to get the right color for the final image. So in a linear workflow, colors are processing in different way, and it's quite long subject, so I'm not going to cover this in this tutorial. And then there's a really good tutorial out there on the YouTube or anywhere on the internet, so I'm sure you can easily find it. So displacement should be a law in ACES workflow, or even just a normal linear workflow as well. So I just plug into the displacement. And then base color. Base color will be a sRGB texture. So usually just sRGB, but in ACES workflow should be sRGB texture. So just convert it to sRGB texture. And roughness will be, it's just a law. So I'll just keep it what it is. The default setting is also different, depends on your color setting. So just to set it what it's supposed to be, And whatever the color information usually is set to the sRGB, and then whatever is like non-color information, like roughness is what looks like color, but then it's actually black and white values. So it's not really like color that we're gonna using it for render. So I'm gonna use it for a law, and then just plug this into the subsurface color. Okay, and this one is the displacement. I think this is the all displacement, so I'm gonna use this one. Okay. And this is the I think the one that I baked with the 32-bit, so it's a bit more blur, but basically they're the same thing. But then this one is the 16-bit and this one is 32-bit, so it's more I have more values basically, but should carry more information, I hope. So I'm gonna use this one instead. And roughness, I will go into the roughness input, which is here. Okay, so a basic head is basically set up. I mean, this is basically just base input, so I will definitely need to like adjust the values. But here is basically the starting point. Okay, and there's a few things that I want to change before even I do the test render. So the IOR, which is the index of refraction, usually the human skin is range from 1.35 to 1.4. Usually that kind of a number works better. So I'll be starting with the 1.35. Okay, and that's like, it's not the absolute value. I mean, it's basically how much reflection will be happening on the human skin, but it also matters how much like sweat or oils on the skin. So there's a lot of factors to affect the amount of reflection, but it's just a pure value for the skin itself. So I'm just putting this number. If you want a skin to be more like reflective in everywhere, like more of a reflective surface, then put the higher number, like 1.4, even 1.5. But I'm restarting with this number. And then since the subsurface will basically override all the base color, it basically can be a 0 here. I mean, it doesn't really matter because this one basically took over this value, but I'll just put it to 0 anyways. And then subsurface, so this color here, I'll be making this one to more like orangish color, something like this. But you can also set this color with here skin and replace, and then there's the color that kind of works quite well by default. So this preset skin, a lady's color. If you feel like if you're having hard time to find this color, then you can just pick that color instead. Right, so that's that. And then the other thing is a scale. So scale 1, well, 1 sounds like a default number, but it's actually quite big number in general. So it basically depends on how big is your object is really, but I will start with the 0.1 and then will increase or decrease. It depends on the render, but I usually start with the 0.1 for the skins, and usually it kind of works quite well in general. So yeah, these are the basic values that I'm starting with. And I'm gonna put the same numbers for the hand as well. So I mean, it looks really dark, but this color on the viewport is not the actual color that's gonna be rendered out. So it's just to see there's certain color is applied and nothing more than that. So don't mind too much about that color. And right color, right click, and then assign favorite material, AI center surface. So it doesn't matter how you assign, as long as you assign the new material. Okay, so name it to the hand. And then bring these few textures. These are the textures that I baked. And then the sculpted map here. So I'll be using this one instead of this one. Same deal. So diffuse one should set to the sRGB texture. And normals and the spec is actually need to be a sRGB, because the spec color is actually the color that we're gonna actually use as a reflection color. So this one usually the diffuse color and the specular color should set to the sRGB, and then most of other thing can set to the raw. I mean, it's not like for every other textures, but that's quite works well in general. So yeah, so these two should set to the raw color space, and then diffuse texture can set to the sRGB, and if you have specular color, then also can be set to the sRGB. So I'm gonna plug this in. Preset to the skin, and it automatically set IOR to 1.33. We set to 1.35. Doesn't matter much. It's just 0.002. Won't change much, anyways. And then plug this color into the surface color, surface color, and then plug this normal into a geometry and bump mapping. And this bump 2D node is generated when I plug this normal map into the geometry. So just use as a tangent space numbers. Okay, and then hand specular color can go into the specular color. Lastly, displacement map that I baked from the ZBrush, it can be plugged into the displacement map in shader engine itself. So this is the shader inputs, and this is the actual kind of shader. So-called shading group. So yeah, these two hand and the head texture, basic texture, like are plugged in already. I need to change the scale to 0.1. Okay, and this is what I got. It looks really dark, of course, but again, it's just only in the viewport, so it will be probably fine when I actually run the render. And then there's a armors. There's a bunch of textures that I need to set up. So start with the steel. I already grouped out based on the materials. So I can right click and then select object. So I can select all the steels. So select everything and assign favorite material, AI standard surface. So I just name it steel. And click this button, select any object that has a shader, and then click this button where basically clean up the window and then only show that shading network. So it's quite handy button here. So from here I'll be putting all these steel related materials. Base color height, metalness, normal, and roughness. Okay, so same deal. Well, these are mostly height, and then metalness, mostly just information is like the value. Like even the normal is value. As well as the roughness. Only the base color can change to the sRGB. Okay. So I can plug this in to a base color. Okay, and then the metalness here can go into the metalness here. As you can see, this one is from the color to color, but then the metalness is single value, so it's take the value from the ARPA. So one thing I usually do is actually using hit the tab button and then type the luminance or LU, and then there's a luminance here, so just click it, and basically this one is convert the color information to the gray value. So basically, if you think about like the simple way, just change the color to the gray. So sometimes alpha and the colors are not matching, and oftentimes, especially something that baked out from the Substance Painter. So I usually using this luminance node to change the color to the gray value. So instead of using the alpha itself, and then out value to the metalness. Or same for the roughness. Yeah, so that way I find that it works better rather than just click like drag and drop. So Control D to duplicate and out color to the value, and then this one can go to the roughness, so like this. And height basically, well, height is basically the same as the normal, so I'll just delete this. And then normal can go to a geometry section down there and go to bump mapping and change this to a tangent space normal. Yeah, so this one is basically sets. Again, this is a basic setup, and then we'll need to tweak the value. It depends on the render, but yeah, it's quite rather simple setting. It will be simpler than the subsurface scattering, of course, because subsurface are usually most tricky shader. So the armor is done, and this one's gold. Select objects and right click, and then assign favorite material. So I got this one, and this time will be a gold. So gold base, height, metal, normal, and roughness. one thing I need to do is also change the UV tiling from off to AU dims, because most of them has more than one tires. So UDIM, changing UDIM so I can bring all the textures in. So there's 4 maps each for the steel parts, and then 2 maps each for the gold part. If I set to the UDIM, then it automatically brings all the associated textures together. So I'll color to the value as well as the roughness, and just plug into the roughness and the metalness. And base color I change to sRGB, and I'll color to base color. So the gold also finished its setup, and change this to the Nori UDIM. And next one can be the brass. So select objects, where this one only has 1 tires per each maps, so no need to change the UV tiling. Okay, there's 2 more, 3 more actually. Skirt, and then the chainmail and leather on the armor, and then the sword for the last one. Okay. Yeah, so I'll be keep assigning materials, doing the basically same thing until I assign plugged in all the textures, and then we'll be back for the set up the basic look depth scenes. Okay, so most of the texture and shader has been plugged in. The last one is the hair. So select all the hair groups and right click and assign new material and go to shader. There's the AI standard surface and the AI standard hair, so I'm gonna use this one. Okay, so AI standard hair. There's a bunch of nodes here, but basically using the base color and melanin, and those two are probably the most of the thing that it will be affected, the actual render. So melanin should set to 1. Let me try the render first. Yeah, so from here I'll create a base plane. Throw a base light here, so under Arnold and lights, area lights. So just start with one light, and increase exposure to around like 15. Let's see if this value is too much or fine. And then from this point I'll create new camera, so new perspective camera, and then let's focus on the head area first. This is quite heavy in the hair, so sometimes for me, in my case, viewport is quite like slow. So setting, can use previous settings to maybe around like 10%, and well, it doesn't look good, but at least it only displays 10% of the actual render. So orbiting will be faster at least. The render will be fine though. Okay. So maybe start with something like this, like front view, and then I will just lock this camera. Okay, and then open up the Arnold render view. Okay, and I can start test render from this point. So if I hit the render, it's gonna take a while for the very first render, because it basically turned all the textures to TX, and that process might take a while, depends on your machine or number of texture you have. But the next render should be quicker.